Thank you for those of you returning. Thank you and welcome to those people who are joining us for the first time. It's really lovely to see you all here, and especially on such a hot day where I'm sure you want to be outside drinking Pimm's. So it's really kind of you to join us. I'm Jen Langerscoff. I'm Education Programme Manager for Festival Bridge. I'm also an artist educator, an artist and a former art and design teacher. By this time next year, Festival Bridge hopes to have created a network of arts teachers from both primary and secondary settings who are more confident, capable and passionate about their personal creative practice and their professional lives. We've really tried to listen to what you have asked for and what your needs are since the last Native Creatives programme. And we did that by using the Jamboard, which we'll use again at the end of this session, and also by I hosted a focus group of teachers from across different settings just to ask what they felt about Native Creatives and how we can keep the conversation going in a purposeful and productive way. So following that feedback, this programme's theme is making positive change, advocacy, subversion and pioneership. And we hope that we've really carefully selected our expert guest speakers based on our theme, and we hope that you can that they'll provide you with some real food for thought in developing and instigating change in your creative practice, both inside and outside of schools. And we'd really like you to get involved with the Native Creatives conversation. So you can join the Native Creatives Facebook group. There is one on Twitter. You can follow us from Festival Bridge on Twitter with the hashtag Native Creatives. And you can find all the information in the chat box, which my colleagues will post. And we want to provide a place where you can talk to each other and to share your experiences as creative arts teachers, and also about your creative practice outside of the classroom. So please do get involved in that. We also want to know what you would like to hear for the next programme, which will be in the autumn. What kind of speakers would you like? Who do you want to hear from? What do you want to know about? So as I mentioned before, we'll have a Jamboard open at the end of this session, and we'd just like you to put a couple of post-it notes following the questions that we have asked to give us a bit of an idea about what you felt about the session and why you were here and what you got from it and what you'd like to see in the future. It's just really helpful for us and also for the speakers, because they would like to see how they've got on too. As I said, we're using the Mentimeter to just gauge who we've got in the room. We will be recording, and we will also have live captioning at the bottom, which is available to you if you need it, and you can find that in the taskbar. It doesn't pick up on the words native, so whenever anyone says Native Creatives, for some reason I don't know what it comes up with, but something very peculiar. But it does like the word and it does like yeah, so that's very peculiar. Please also think about some really good questions for our speakers, either throughout or at the end. So think about your personal practice and your professional endeavours. What might a specific topic that they might have spoken about that might connect with something that you're working on, or what kind of advice would you like from them that which will help drive your ambition to make change? So please really have a think about that, because it helps us at the end, and it means that I don't take over the conversation, which I find very easy to do. So I would just like to make a warm welcome to our next speaker. Paul is a nationally recognised art design consultant, having delivered specialist art in CPD in schools, colleges, galleries and universities across the UK and for the UK's leading training providers. He is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and a former council member for the NSAAD, which means he is involved in national art education policy issues. Paul is a published author of 2 books, Drawing for Science, Invention and Discovery, and his latest book, I can't quite see him, but if he's holding it up, Drawing to Learn Anything. He's also a practicing professional artist and designer. Paul runs his highly successful art website, paulcarneyarts.com, that provides high quality teaching resources and advice to teachers around the world. He's over 20 years teaching experience at primary, secondary and post-16 levels of education, and is an advanced skills teacher, ex-subject leader for art, and was a member of the DFE Expert Advisory Group for Art and Design. In addition to this, he was a member of the NSAAD Curriculum Writing Group that wrote the Framework for Progression Learning, Planning for Learning Assessment, recording and reporting in 2014. It gives me an enormous amount of pleasure to welcome Paul Carney to Native Creatives, and to hand straight over to this marvellous man. So thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much, Jen. Can I just check how much time I've got with this?
Yeah, so if you've got to, we need to finish the session around 6:15. So if we leave kind of 5 or 10 minutes for some questions and chatting at the end,
Okay.
does that give you enough time? Sort of 25 minutes or so, 25, 30 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. I shall endeavour to fit it into that. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much. I'm so honoured and flattered that you've all considered this worthy enough and important enough to give up some of your time for, and it really does move me, actually. So this is the session. This is the book. It's a book primarily aimed at students, and it's very readable, I hope. It's not got a lot of academic referencing in it. It's like all of my books, it's meant to be a practical, pragmatic book you can use in the classroom, and I see myself as a bit of an ideas person, and hopefully it's just got lots of ideas, and some you might pick up and use and some you might not. You can buy it from the Great British Bookshop, or if you want a signed copy, you can buy it from my website, paulcarneyarts.com, and I'll sign it for you. So, the book is called Drawing to Learn Anything, and I just want to clarify, first of all, that I mean glyphic drawing, which is non-skilled drawing that doesn't need any skills, or, you know, so there shouldn't be any anxiety about, oh, well, I can't draw. But I am aware that some teachers might not feel comfortable using drawing, and that's why it's primarily aimed at students, because I feel they're more open to learning in this way than many of the teachers will be, who sometimes are a bit closed off or unconfident. So the first thing I want you to do is to write these words out 5 times. And I want to be able to see people doing that. So I'm going to have to try to put it onto, yeah, there we go. So I'm going to ask you to remember these words. And to do that, I want you to try and do it by writing them down, just as you would with the children at school. Now, I've chosen deliberately big words from bigwords.com. It's a great site. I love it. The reason is that your teachers, your intellectuals, your adults, I want to increase your cognitive load and tax you a little bit by giving you words that are a bit trickier than the kind of words you would ask your children to use. I'm not sure how you say the first one. Calipigian, having shapely buttocks. It's like something Susie Dent would use, isn't it? I don't know how you say it. And when you're finished, just indicate you're finished, and maybe it's by raising the hand in your interactivity hand, maybe some kind of signal that I can move on. Two hands up. Claire's raising her hand, excellent. I'll just wait for a couple more hands to go up and then I'll move on. I'll wait for my friend Claire Pope, because she's, I know Claire, and I'll wait till she's finished. Hiya, Claire. Right, I can't hear you. You're on mute as usual with these things. But yeah, a hands up. Right, okay. I'm going to ask you to recall those words, and now what I'd like you to do is to draw these words as pictures. So how can you remember those words using pictures? It says upload your results here. Actually, you might try that if you want. It's for something else, but if you wanted to upload it, you can. If not, you don't have to. And again, some hands are going up. Just give me a hand up when you are finished that. Seem to be much more efficient, faster than doing it when you were writing it. And again, you're going to be asked to recall these in a few minutes' time, so try to remember them. Just Rohan and Claire, can you put your hands up if you're ready to move on? Just raise your hand if you are. Right, okay, I'm going to move on. So this is what the book's all based on. The whole of the book is based on this piece of research that was done published in 2018. And it was a huge piece of research done in Canada that the psychologists looked at the most effective way of remembering things. And they found that drawing had the most learning gains than any other form of memory technique, such as elaboration, visualizing, writing it down, even tracing it. And they think that was it improves memory because you're using motor actions and it's context dependent, and there's a kind of embodied cognition that's coming through it. And this is what the test looked like that they gave people. And it was a simpler test than the one I've given you. The words were easier, but the principle was the same. They were writing out words in long lists, and then they were getting them to draw very simple, non-skilled pictures. And they found that the quality of the drawing didn't matter at all. It didn't matter whether it didn't look like the thing you were trying to draw. It didn't matter that somebody's drawing was better than somebody else's. All that mattered was that you'd actually drawn it. You got the same learning gains, the same memory gains. And so I thought to myself, right, wow, this is going to be brilliant. All of these psychologists, educational psychologists, they'll all pick this up now because it's been shown, it's been proven. We'll see the kind of DFE pick this up, and they didn't. They just didn't pick it up at all, and they just dismissed it out of hand. And I thought that's possibly because they have a negative viewpoint of creative subjects, but I also thought it might be because they just don't know how to actually use it. So I spent a couple of years just thinking of ways you could use it in all subjects across the school. And memory, remembering information is really crucial. So I I tried just drawing things, but I just added extra things to it. So I thought, right, okay, we've got the drawing, but I know from being someone who tries to remember things in the past that visualization is really important. The mind palace kind of techniques are really important. I know that if you want to teach children difficult words, you break them down into syllables. I really had learned that spaced retrieval was really important. And I knew that from being a singer on stage and trying to learn words of songs. And dual coding, the idea that pictures and words help us to remember more. So this became SAD drawing, syllable sound association drawing. And what it is, it involves you breaking down complex words into their syllable sounds and drawing a picture for each of the syllable sounds. And then you draw the meaning of the word. So I've done amino as amino acid. I've done I could have thought of ham, but I've used this a lot over the last 3 years, and it's better. I find if I have the first letter, it's easier to remember. So am became AM of a clock, and it's just any drawing that helps you get back to the word, that helps you to remember it. And then mean, I just drew a mean emoji, and then a policeman saying no. Then I drew the 9 amino acids. And then vitamin, I couldn't think of something for vit. You might find that often. You think, I can't think of anything. So just think of something that rhymes with it. And then I've just elaborated the first letter to rhyme with hit to make vit. And then I've done am and in. I've got mineral as mean again, and then hair, then a hall, and my piece de resistance, which is carbohydrate, which I love that. I think that's just a piece of genius, if you must know. I'm just kidding. But what does this do? It helps you, rather than trying to remember the whole word, which is sometimes too hard, it helps you to remember a series of images that join together to form the word. And I can promise you that a lot of people, and young people, and they will say to you, it's okay, I've remembered it. I've got it. And your brain fools you into thinking, yeah, I know that mineral. But give yourself some time, some space, and then ask to remember it, and you'll struggle. And you struggle because the brain is programmed to forget useless things. We forget things we're programmed to, because the brain doesn't want to walk around with all of these useless facts in our heads. We remember things that are memorable. We remember things that stand out to us, that are interesting, that are appealing. We remember things through our senses, and all of our senses are important, and our emotions are important. So how are we feeling, where we are? You are more likely to remember something if you're in the same room as the place where you learned it. You are more likely to remember something if you can smell the same smells as you were smelling when you learned it. So you might be drinking coffee as you're studying on a night. If you've got coffee in your exam hall, it will trigger the kind of memory response. So memory, everyone's doing these damn bloody quizzes, and I feel like screaming, because we are human beings, and as human beings, we remember in a rich, diverse, creative set of ways, and pictures and images are profoundly important for that. So I'd like you now to just try and break down these 3 words I picked from an art knowledge organizer and use our syllable sound association drawing technique for technique, and try to just break technique into technique. What do you think rhymes, or what do you think those syllable sounds? And they don't have to be exactly the same. It doesn't have to be tech. It could be tech as in technology. When I did this, I'm going to give you a start. I did a tick and I drew a little bug, or because I thought of a tick, but it could be a correct answer tick. It's there's no right and wrong way of doing it. It's just whatever is the way you get back to the word and you remember it. And again, when you've done them, put your hands up on your things. And draw the meaning of the word too. So don't just draw the word as in technique. What does technique mean? And just draw it as pictures. The more pictures you do, the better. You might sometimes have to label it, but try to draw it. What does annotation mean? And draw construction in relation to art rather than the building industry. Otherwise, it'll be confusing. And while you're all busy working, I just want to say that drawing and learning has been around a long time, much longer than I've been exploring it. And people have always used visual support to help them remember things. There's things called Spark Notes. There's stuff the educator Pi Corbett uses. There's some fabulous drawing for learning techniques out there. But people don't often draw words. They don't often draw subject terminology and the meaning of words. And the book's divided into different sections. So one of the sections is this, drawing for memory and to remember things. Another chapter is devoted to drawing to understand complex text in essay questions, and how to break them down. I might not have time to show you that. And another technique is drawing to learn skills. Drawing over time, so that if you're trying to teach your children how to do a particular skill, it shows you how to use drawing to help them do that. There's a drawing for maths section, all the different ways we can use drawing in maths. And lastly, there's drawing conventions, different ways people draw for different subject areas. Just give me a hand up when I can move on. Lovely. I'm going to now move on. Excellent. One thing that's really important is spaced retrieval. And it works like this. So this is something I was trying to learn called a zygomatic arch, which is your cheekbone in here. And I broke it down into For xylophone, go for a set of traffic lights, matic, automatic washing machine, and an arch. And then I drew a little picture of the skull and where it is. And what you do is, and in a lesson, you might do this exercise at the start of a lesson, for example, and then after 5 or 10 minutes, ask them to recall it. And then repeat that at the end of the lesson. And then say to them, I want you to try and recall it tonight for homework. And then I'm going to test you next week to see if you've remembered it. And that should give you successive spaces, because as I said, the brain's programmed to forget. And I can tell you from experience, you're more likely to forget it after 3 minutes than you are after 1 hour. Because it hasn't properly fully embedded in your mind yet. And the way we remember things is to build new synapses in our brain, and we only do that by repetition. So the fact that you're spending time with it repeatedly helps to build that connection. It's not made fully yet. So we'll test you. Can you now recall all the words? And you're having to look. Don't cheat. I should have told you to turn your paper over. If you've seen it, you've spoiled the exercise. So be honest when we come to results if you saw the words. But just try to write down the 3 words you wrote 5 times and the 3 words you drew. I'm seeing some sniggers and giggling now. It's very common to forget them, trust me. You should remember the 3 ones you did with the syllable sound association, because that was only a minute ago. So those 3 should come easy. But let's see how good you are with 3 Susie Dent words. Donna looks like she's having a hard time here now. And Karen, I think, is about to have a breakdown. So don't be too hard on yourselves. We are programmed to forget. Your brain doesn't want to remember this stuff. It's too hard, and why does it need to? We haven't evolved to learn what a zygomatic arch is. I'm going to see if I can scroll and see anybody else. And is there, if you've finished, yep, Claire and Sherry have put their hands up. Donna's put hers up. We're just waiting for Ro and Emma. Rose put hers up. Right. Okay. So Claire's holding hers up. I can't see it, Claire, because it's so tiny on my screen. Who got all 3 written words right? Just put your hand up like that if you got all 3 written words and you remembered them. Or is it poo? P-U-I? Pooey? Pooey. Okay, you got all 3 written words. Yeah, I think you're the only person to actually do that. So well done, you. Right. You get the first prize, which is to do the washing up. Who got the 3 visual words? The chorus and oh wow! So we got more hands up for the visual words. I'm going to pick on individuals. Claire Stewart, can you unmute yourself, Claire?
There we go.
Lovely. Yeah. Can you just tell me what happened in your brain as you were trying to recall them?
Well, I have a problem with this because they're words that I use every day, so they were easy ones to remember.
Wow.
As opposed to the other ones.
Oh,
However,
sorry, I thought you meant you use Coruscant and Bellwether on a regular basis.
No, I didn't get any of those. I couldn't remember any of them.
Well, those are the 6 I'm more interested in. So you didn't remember any of those 6 words?
Not a single one.
Not a single one. So tell me your thought process that was going on in your brain. Was there anything you did remember, but it...
No, I mean, I have got a shocking memory, but I tried to think of what I was drawing and I could see the pictures, but I couldn't remember what the word was.
Well, that's what I'm interested in. That's what I was alluding to. Could you remember the pictures you'd drawn?
Yes. Yeah, but I didn't have a clue what the word was.
And what about the 3 written words? Did you have
any?
any?
Yeah, the same there. I could see the pictures, but I think if you were doing this in a lesson, they would have the knowledge of what the word meant, and it would be a case of being able to recall what it was. So because I have no knowledge of those words at all, they're not in my memory bank anyway. Do you know what I mean?
But you have to remember that for the children, they probably, and a lot of your children won't know the word you're trying to teach them. They won't know it. They won't have heard it. It'll be as foreign to them as Coruscant was to you. Yeah, and you'll unpack it and you'll teach it.
Exactly. So they will then, in order to memorize it for later on, they will have had that experience of the lesson working with that word, wouldn't they?
To an extent, yes, and sometimes more than others. Sometimes you'll spend much longer explaining words than you will with other words. I just want to maybe go to Karen Yeoman. How did you find the experience if you unmute yourself? You're having problems unmuting yourself, Karen.
Hello,
There you go. Yeah, I can now.
Hi.
So what was your experience of remembering the first 6 words?
I got one of the written words.
Right.
And 2 of the drawing ones.
Oh, wow.
So, yes.
And what was going on in your...
Bellwether was my favourite because I could draw a bell.
I like definitely.
So Bellwether, I have got in my head. I have no idea what it means. I can't remember that, but I know Bellwether.
And so that was the point I'm trying to illustrate, is that if you, and we've seen that with Claire and with you, is that you will remember the images much more effectively than when you will the words. And there's a very simple reason for that, and that is writing is a set of symbolic codes that we invented 4,000 years ago, and they're hard. It's hard to learn those symbolic codes. It's hard to learn to read and write. But if I drew a picture, I'm visualizing an internal thought from my brain, and it wouldn't matter where you came from. You wouldn't need to know English to be able to understand it. You could tell bellwether from seeing a bell and some weather. So it works on a really deep level in our brain, and we've been visualizing and doing pictures. The first drawn image, the earliest drawn image, is 500,000 years old, and it was drawn on a shell, and it's called the Trinil shell, and it's a zigzag pattern. And that's the earliest cognitive marks that's ever been made, 500,000 years old. I'm just conscious of time. How many minutes have I got left, Jen?
Well, we're at 6:10. We are due to finish at 6:15. So, would you like to go to some questions, or would you like to? Do you want to keep going?
Can I just give you a couple more minutes because
sure.
I'll just try to take you through some of the other. That was me, by the way, doing the same exercise you've just done, and then this is my 5-minute remembering test, I remembered something was a nice bum, and I remembered something about gastron. I remembered flash and glitter, but I couldn't remember the word. I remembered cyclops and nose, and I remembered bellwether. I only got 1 out of 6, but I thought I was much better at remembering the pictures. By the time I'd done it a couple of times, I know all of them, but I still find the written ones harder. You can use this method to just quickly showing you how to draw to understand text, is that when we're reading anything, what we do is we have to decipher the text, we have to read it, and then we have to construct meaning from it. So we can do that pretty easily. We're all intelligent, but for young children that might be harder. So they have to read the word, understand what it means, and then make inferences from it, which is what are the implications of the thing I've just read. And so you can do that really well with drawing. I was an illustrator, lots of you are visual thinkers, and I know that I know how to paraphrase a bit of text through drawing it. But as an illustrator, I'm trying to draw it to a really high level. I'm worried about the execution, of how good it is. If I remove that and I just say, it doesn't matter what it's like, just try to draw the meanings of that text and just paraphrase it in one image, then it becomes much more accessible for everybody to use it as a tool. So this is an English language GCSE question, and the question was to try to understand how the author has used words and phrases to describe a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Well, you can do that by underlining the words and drawing them one by one, and just making images. And that process of just making an image from a complex word, if you talk to students, they'll say, I read it over and over and over again, but I just can't understand what it means. It's like double Dutch. So if you just show them how to, okay, just break it down into words, and each word draw a picture for each word. And then gradually, when you get through it, it'll make more sense to you. And it really does work. It really is a useful thing. And I'll just lastly show you this, which is, this was, for those of you who do visual arts exams, it was the last art exam we did, I think, maybe one of the last. And this was the externally set assignment of 2018. There's loads of questions. This was the interiors question. And it's got a reading age of 18. And the English language paper I've just showed you had a reading age of 14. And if you're making text for the general public to read, you usually try to pitch it at the reading age of a 14-year-old. And art's really highly complex. There's so many complex words and terminology. And so you have to show children how to break down, because lots of them can't read the kind of question. They can't understand it. They don't know what it means. That's why we have all of these exam sessions, isn't it? And so all I'm doing is, I look the word interior up in the dictionary. I find it has 3 meanings. I draw them. It could be inside a house. It could be inside of a person, or it could be inside of a land. And it equals, because I've got that from the question, stories and events in life. And then I've looked at the question, and I've looked at all the artist references that they've linked to, that they've told me about, and I've drawn pictures for what each of them are. I've looked them up and I've checked them. I've drawn little pictures. That Vermeer and Hogarth was about morals, and Laurie Simmons was dolls' houses, etc. And what that does is it gives me the first 2 stages of reading text, which is deciphering it and making meanings from it. And what do we need to do now? We need to make inferences. So how do we do that? Well, we just visualize. I've chosen the morals, the Hogarth Vermeer, because I thought that was the one that appealed to me. And I've thought, right, visualize, what do morals mean? Well, it could be sin. It could be good morals. You could be kind and helpful. Where do you get them from? School. You make connections with sin. What type of sin? It could be knife crime, alcohol, blood, violence. What does that mean? Well, it could mean hospital and death and in prison or being drunk. Straight away now, within, this might take 20 minutes to half an hour, I've got really good information to help me answer that GCSE question. And I haven't had to do a PowerPoint presentation. I haven't had to do a brainstorming session, which I'm not a big fan. And it visualizes those complex words. So that is how you can use drawing to help you answer complex exam questions. And I'm happy if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Paul. That was so interesting. I really enjoyed doing those tasks, and I found it incredibly difficult to remember any of those words. But I really liked doing the drawings, so that's good. And I would imagine that that's what children get out of it too. They enjoy doing the drawings. I don't want to take over the conversation now, because I think lots of people will have some questions. Are you happy to stop sharing so we can just see faces? And then would anybody like to talk to Paul about this method? Claire Stewart, would you like to go first?
Need to unmute that, sorry.
Yeah, I've unmuted. I'm just wondering how we linked to the Durham report that was done and creative thinking, because this seems to me such a good way of engaging other subjects in the creatives and using them in a really positive way.
Yeah, I think it does link to that, and it's certainly something I'd be very interested in talking to schools about. But that, I mean, I've offered sessions with schools. I've had competitions where you could just retweet and win a free session. I'm doing a free session with a school in Manchester in September. And I'm really interested in trying to link with schools to get them to use it and see how effective it is. I'd love that if anybody was interested in working with me on that, because I do think, like, I've been doing this 3 years. I've taught, my memory is shocking, but I've taught myself so much anatomy and complex anatomical words that I knew nothing about. And I can remember them, and I can say them, and I can understand what they mean. And it's just because, I mean, Susan Cole said it, she thinks in pictures, but most of us do. And this is what the point of the book is, that when we're trying to read things, it's often so complex, our brains can't process it. And so if we picture it, if we visualize it, I mean, 90% of our brain is linked to kind of vision. That's astonishing. So it makes sense, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I guess teenagers are visual learners anyway. Well, I don't want to use that word actually, but they're constantly bombarded with visuals, and they're constantly looking at visuals, if you think of technology. And
there's something about drawing it, that embodied cognition of actually drawing it, regardless of how skillful it is, that helps to embed it in your brain, and it helps you to remember it. But I will say, there's no panacea. We forget things. We're supposed to forget things, and trying to remember things is difficult. So even though I've remembered lots of anatomy, because I don't use it as part of my job, I'm always forgetting it.
Absolutely. It's that repetition and recall, isn't it?
it's just use, isn't it? It's just like,
Yeah.
I think in the book I describe it as like somebody going for a walk with a kind of backpack. If you overload it with too much useless things, it's going to be inefficient. And so your brain gets rid of anything it doesn't need because it's easier. It's just kind of lighter for it, because it needs to use energy, and it does that with less than the energy of a light bulb. So it has to be efficient.
I guess that's why I didn't remember any of those words.
There's something as well about, I think, about the process of drawing, which changes something, alters something in your brain, doesn't it? And I've worked with lots of children who find it very difficult to listen and certainly to remember, but you get them sitting and drawing what you're talking about and drawing what they're meant to be thinking about, and it becomes much more effective, doesn't it? There seems to be less pressure in the drawing than there is in the writing of a word, doesn't there?
Yeah, I mean,
if you're not judging the drawing, you know, if you're not sort of
exactly.
So it doesn't matter what the drawing looks like, but I think it uses a different kind of cognition, as you say, and it's a totally different process.
And I genuinely think that people have a human speed, a human pace of kind of learning things, and if you try to go too fast than a person's speed of learning, it's counterproductive. If you go too slow, it's counterproductive. But I genuinely think a lot of fast learners, like I was a fast learner at school, and I would race through materials and forget them just as instantly, because I think there's a human pace, and drawing slows you down and makes you take time with it. And I think we need time. I think less is more with it, to just take your pace to learn things and spend time with it.
We've run out of time, Paul, I'm afraid. That was absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for coming and being part of Native Creatives. We've had some lovely comments in the chat box, and I'd like to invite the participants to just click on into the chat box, onto the Jamboard link, and just give us a little bit of feedback about this session, because it just really helps Paul with his job and moving forward, and it helps us with how we can help support you as creative arts teachers, and what we can programme for the next bit of Native Creatives, and also what Festival Bridge can do to support you with working with artists like Paul and working with partnerships and arts organisations. So please do just give us some feedback just for 2 seconds on the Jamboard. That would be brilliant.
That's lovely.
That was utterly great, and I could go on and on and on.
And I've just touched the sides of it. There's so much more in the book.
Buy the book, everyone. Get the book. Paul will even sign it for you.
I'll sign if you buy it from my website. Yeah.
Paul is, as I said, fantastic on Twitter. He is there a lot and making and posting really interesting things. I first came across Paul as well because we have there is the network of East Anglian art teachers, which are doing a collaboration with the North Eastern Art Educators Teacher Network, and they are working together to create amazing workshops and sessions for arts teachers, but I think it's open to all creative arts teachers, but with a focus on being art and design. It was a joy to meet you there and to start a relationship with you, Paul, and to hear about all the wonderful things that you are doing for secondary and primary schools. So thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, I just think creativity is at the heart of everything, and I think we're underused and underplayed. So yeah. This is great, isn't it?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming today. Tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Tomorrow we have Laura Jones from Stopgap Dance talking about movement and disability, and we have Dr. Claire Penketh talking about who's a professor of culture studies and disability studies. So 2 really interesting with an SEND focus, but really interesting creative practitioners. We would love to see you all there. It's going to rain tomorrow. Well, it is in Norfolk, in East Anglia. So it's another reason why you can just get back onto Zoom again. You know, like the old, it's like the whole of May, isn't it? That we spent. Thank you very, very much, everybody, and don't forget to join our Native Creatives Facebook group and follow us at Festival Bridge on Twitter. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.